Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to 2025, which is here whether we want it or not. It is 2025. Uh, I am happy to be here for the first code break of 2025. Like I mentioned, if you saw me online, LinkedIn, my blog, whatever, going to be a lot more consistent, hopefully, this year with the sessions. In fact, I have the next like 4 sessions already in the calendar, so it will be a little bit less random. Hope you are doing well. I am doing okay. My wife and I just got back a little under a week ago from a our first cruise in Europe, a good 10-day trip to Europe, and it was incredible. First cruise for us both. Uh, First time for my wife out of the country at all. And I've been to Europe many times, but this particular trip was along the Danube from Budapest to Passau, and it was all new to me. So it was a lot of new stuff. It was really, really great. I'm actually planning on blogging it uh, because why not? One of my most popular blog posts last year was about my first time attending Antiques Roadshow because it was different and interesting. So I'm gonna talk about that. Uh, that was great, and I thank my mom, who was great grandma and watched the kids. Got back and was home for like 2 or 3 days, and I'll keep this really high level, but I got the stomach bug, and I haven't had the stomach bug in many, many years, and yeah, I never wanna have that again. Like, no one has suffered as much as I have. I'm pretty sure about that. It was only 1 day, but, like, I for, like, the last couple of days, my appetite's been gone. I've just been kinda everything tastes and smells weird and all that. It's been a lot. Also, if this is not your first time here, or maybe it's your first time here, that's fine. Um Also, just as a reminder, Adobe last year, as a Christmas present, thank you, Adobe, gave me the gift of being laid off. So I am still on the prowl for my next job in developer evangelism, advocacy, and so forth. Things were definitely slow. Like my wife and I were gone for 10 days and it was the holidays. So I'm hoping that things ramp up. But if you're watching this and you're hiring, or you know somebody who's hiring and you need a professional cat demo builder, I mean, who else would beat me at that? Like I am your person. So hopefully I won't have to keep repeating this particular part of the session for the next couple of code breaks. Hopefully, the next time we meet, I can say I am the new developer advocate for blah blah blah. I shouldn't say that. That's probably a real internet company. That sounds like an internet company. Uh, Message from Edward here. I'll share. I'll share. Remember MX Vegas? I know. Remember that? Yeah, there were. So there's a couple of us in the audience here, myself included, who were very big in the Adobe developer community, the Cool Fusion community. Um, Back in the day, and there used to be a crap ton of conferences back then. So I kind of remember MX Vegas. I will say the Cold Fusion Summit that they have in Vegas is really well done. I've spoken at the last couple ones, and I think it's really well done. Great team, so forth. Uh, it was something like a pandemic of stomach bugs in Eastern Europe. Well, I'll say, while I was gone, my mom let me know that 2 of my boys had the same issue, and it knocked them down for a day. It wasn't that big of a deal. So most likely, I got back and I got it from them. So who knows? And yeah, where did I sail? Along the Danube, Budapest. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly. And to Passau. I've been to Germany before, Munich, and our flights took us in and out of Munich, but every stop along the way was a new city for me. A lot of castles in Europe. Lot of castles. Turn the music up a bit. I can do that. Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. Put it on 18. And I know there's a bit of a lag there, Todd. Would you let me know? that is a bit better. And what I'll do is I'll tell myself, "Let me write down the number I used, the next time I don't have to go through this, and I'm completely get to do this." It was, uh, it was actually ToddCon, the other Dreamweaver conference. Yeah, I'm I'm gonna get some hate here. I never used Dreamweaver, but I had a lot of respect for Dreamweaver. I always thought it was a great tool for other people, uh, and I don't mean that disparagingly at all. As a developer, it didn't really fit me, but I think if you were using the web and were kind of not really a coder per se, I always thought Dreamweaver was a great tool. Um, and of course, not to be confused about Todd. What's weird, and Todd Sharp knows this. There's someone on LinkedIn with the exact same name. I think it's also in DevRel as well, which is just wrong. I still think y'all should do a Highlander. There can only be one type thing. So, all right, that was a lot of intro. Let me tell you about the plan that I have for this because there was a little bit of confusion in terms of some of the emails that went out. We're definitely talking about AI today and possibly the next session and maybe the one after that. Not talking about AI in the browser until we do a session or two until with AI in the on the server. So next couple sessions are going to be AI. I have a great plan for after that you're going to be surprised at. But just to be clear, today not really talking about AI in the browser, more about AI on the server. So before we talk about the generative AI, um, yeah, we can. I've done some dumb things in AI, some dumb but fun things that would probably qualify as that. So let me do my little song and dance here where I switch things over and share my screen and put this over here. And I always forget which darn button to click. There we go. Yep. All right. So, first off, again, I'm shocked that I have a sponsor for me rambling about various tech issues, but shout out goes to Jam. They are a free screen recording browser extension that will auto include all the DevTools stuff in your recording. They do integrations with various issue trackers to make that part of it easier. So, your non technical people can just get the extension, demonstrate the issue, and then send you all the details, and you don't have to nag them about how to open the dev tools and stuff like that. So again, thank you to them. I think they're going to be sponsoring us for a while, so I really appreciate it. And we're going to be talking about generative AI, and that is a incredibly huge topic. Like I've been in this business for 30 years probably. Got out of college and went right into web dev. And I've seen various things get a lot of hype. And I've never seen the hype that I have seen for generative AI, where like every single company in the world, like I'm waiting for a Gen AI toilet to be released if it's not already happened. And I know some of you in the audience right now have opened up Google to see if one exists. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of hype. About a year or so ago, I decided to maybe I should take a look at it because this is not going away. It's getting bigger and bigger. And my impression was that I was just not smart enough to make use of this. Outside of playing with it, like the normal people do, consumers and the apps and stuff like that. I played on ChatGPT and did fun stuff, etc. But I was convinced I would never be able to write code on it. And it was discovering that Google's Gemini service had a free tier that I could play with. That is what said, okay, now I can actually start trying things. Because I was too cheap to send $20 to ChatGPT, and why should I blog and present about their topic and pay them at the same time? Yeah, I said that. So Gemini being free, that's what got me into it. And having spent a year working with it, Uh, I think some of the hype is warranted. I definitely don't think 100% of the hype is warranted. There's been a lot of assistive use cases that really resonate with me. I'm gonna give you an example. A author that I really like, John Birmingham. He has a Patreon where if you sign up and give him a little bit of money, he will give you like chapters of his upcoming works. But even better, he talks about his writing process, and he talked about using Gen AI in his writing process, not in any kind of, write a paragraph for me type thing, but to help him think about the outline of his work, to help him with the arc of characters and stuff like that. And, what he generally said was that, like, what he got back out was pretty much what he expected from Gen AI, but having it be like a second voice to help him think about it, kind of putting together stuff he already knew in an organized way. He found that really useful. I have done my own experiments with my writing, and my friends know that I'm incredibly critical about myself in like every aspect. But I absolutely think that I am a very, very skilled technical writer. So I don't ever imagine using Gen AI to create blog posts for me, but I have used it to look at the titles of blog posts I've written, give me suggestions. Like nearly every time that I've done that, I have not liked the suggestions, but every single suggestion made me think about what I had picked, made me stand behind what I had picked. And I consider that helpful. Like it made me really be sure about what I was doing. I've also I've been very helpful with summarization, especially when it's my own content. So I can, confirm that the summary makes sense. I think that is really helpful. And there's all these use cases of it, it's not creating the final product, but it's giving you a helping hand like an intern that is just really, really clicking with me. I have avoided, for the most part, having it integrated into my editor, and I've only looked at it recently, and I've gotten really, really excited about that as well because trying to do more Python and having it help with Python has been great at times. And I've even seen things like it just does code complete for me based on my other stuff and other things I've written, and it's 90% there. And I always have to tweak it, but it still saves me timing. So I I think we're going to see, if I can speak broadly to the industry, and I promise we'll get into code real soon here. I think we're going to see a bit of a pullback from what we're seeing now, where companies feel the need to put it in every single darn aspect there is. I, I think we'll see a pullback on that, but it's still going to be huge for the next couple of years. I apologize. My phone is doing one of those national security alert, not national. And I'll tell you why. Because if you don't know, I live in Southwest Louisiana, and by the Gulf of Mexico, and this is what's outside in South Louisiana right now. That's my front doorbell camera, and that is about 7, 8 inches of snow. That is insane. I grew up in St. Louis, so I was used to snow every year. This does not happen in the 20 years I've been here, 25. Uh, every couple of years, we'll get an incredibly light dusting, and that's it. You'll see a little white on the roof. You will not see this at all. And so my phone was just saying that there's a lot of accidents. Don't get on the roads because people are dumb and they will do it anyway. So let's talk about Gen AI. We are going to use Google Gemini because it is free and it's very easy to get started with. One thing that I will point out is that you quickly find out that the code is easy and using it correctly is a lot harder. The best example that I can give, my buddy Scott, who's I'm pretty sure is in the room. when you first learn about databases and writing SQL is not difficult. Select star from users, etc. Writing SQL correctly, setting up a database correctly is a science. It's a whole different ball of wax. So you will see your hello world, and it's on screen right there. That's 5 lines of text. Yeah, it's going to be really, really easy, but actually using it correctly is going to be a lot more work. So what my plan is, in this live stream, I always try to build something. This is not a introductory type presentation. I will say this week I'm hoping to record on YouTube a introductory presentation for Gen AI with Gemini that you could watch at your leisure. What I want to build with y'all today, hopefully in one session, but maybe 2, I want to build a generative AI application, a web app, where I can upload a resume just randomly. I don't know why, maybe my resume. And I'm going to see how good of a job Gemini can do in giving me feedback about my particular resume. All right. My thinking is we're going to use Flask, which is a Python web framework that I discovered like 2 weeks ago. That's really super simple. And just see how well it works. But we're going to start simple. We're actually going to start with Gemini's quick start. One thing I'll point out, the way that credentials works in Google Gemini, the easiest way really, is you can get a key and not give Google your credit card, and you're on the free tier. I love that. That's stupid easy. Like, if you don't give us a credit card, we can't charge you, so you're just on our free tier. If you go to aistudio.google.com, and I should have made a little ad banner for that, you can literally, once you've signed in, you can click on Get API Key and just generate a key. If you have any GCP, Google Cloud Platform, if you have any existing projects, if you're already a user and they have your credit card, you can associate your key with that and be on their paid tier. But if you're like me, just starting out and just want to play, getting the key from here is easier. Also, this is AI Studio lets you run tests and try out prompts. Like if you're curious, can I ask Gen AI to create poetry? Is it going to be crap? Is it going to be okay? You can test stuff out, like write a poem about cats. And you could see how well it works or how well it doesn't work. And right from within Gemini, you could click Get Code. And so generally what I do when I'm testing stuff, oh yeah, just go away. Thank you. Generally what I do when I have like a dumb idea, I test it in AI Studio and see if it works before I write any code. But again, go here, you can prototype, you can play, you can get that API key. But if you go to the main docs, which is here, aigoogle.dev/gemini-api/docs, etc. You can start looking at their documentation, and that is pretty easy. So we're going to just copy this. And you're going to see me write a little bit of Python code. I am still pretty new to to Python. I've been writing it a bit, but I still stumble a bit because of all my Node.js knowledge. But I know enough to say we're going to get our API key from the environment, and I have already loaded that, and it's Gemini API key. And then looking at the second line, again, this came from the quick start, so we can copy and paste. Yes, Todd with the smart stuff. I may just do that. Home saw like that. Booyah. All right. Yeah, sorry. So I begin by configuring based on the API key. By the way, you don't have to set an environment variable. If you get your API key and just want to paste it in, that's fine. I won't tell anybody. Just never commit that code to production. This second line, where I select the model, easiest way to think about models in Gen AI is think about different kinds of databases. So if you have ever heard of SQLite, it's an incredibly, hugely popular database that's used in like embedded systems typically. It's open source, etc. But it has a use. It has a use case, small environment, embedded systems, etc. You compare that to like an Oracle database, completely different use. Millions of users, I'll say billions of users. I don't work for Oracle. Scott can correct me, but surely it could have billions of users. Different databases, different use cases where you would use things. In Gen AI, models kind of act in the same way. There's different types of models for different use cases. Gemini actually makes it really kind of simple in terms of they have a Flash and a Pro model. Flash model is quicker and not as smart, and the Pro model is slower and smarter. And you may say, like, why would I ever not use the most intelligent answer one ever? Well, you may be doing a chat-based interface where that speed is very, very important. If you're using Gen AI without user interaction, a use case may be we have resumes coming in and I want to use Gen AI to like give me a summary of these resumes. That could be a back-end process that runs on a schedule and it could take as long as it needs to. Oracle has at least 10 users. I was thinking about like the number of users for a database instance, not developers. Hopefully they have at least 10. Um, so yeah, that line right there on line 6 is just basically saying, hey, I want the fastest response back. And then asking to say, I'm passing the prompt, explain how AI works, and then getting the response. One thing you find out real quick about Gen AI is that these short prompts, it's good for testing, and that's about it. The better your prompt is, the longer, the more explicit it is, the better you get. Now, I'll show an example of that. But let's run this first, just to make sure I haven't messed anything up. I do need to install the SDK, and I always forget the exact pip. There we go. Google Generative AI. So we'll install that. There we go. Love Python. The dependency stuff sometimes gets a little bit tricky. Let's run this. Python test.py. Yeah. Let's try that. I totally knew that was going to happen. So right now, it's taking my prompt and it's giving me the response back. Explain how AI works. And we get a dump of data that I'm absolutely not going to read any of this. However, what I will do is give you an example of how a better, longer prompt helps. So instead of saying, explain how AI works, I could say instead, explain how AI works, and say your response should be tailored for a non-technical audience in high school. No, actually, let's say elementary school. So now in theory, we should get something very, very similar, but hopefully a little bit simpler. Running it again. That was really fast. And you could see it's absolutely a little bit shorter. And hopefully you can see, imagine you're teaching your dog a trick like shaking hands. That's definitely, you could tell immediately the different audience. I will share Todd's comment here. Yes, I do use virtual environments. I was just trying to go as quick as possible for this. It'll probably bite me in the rear later on. I'm not religious about doing it every single time, but I will next time, I promise. And he said that, and he probably will forget. So in theory, if we had taken the 5 minutes in AI Studio to make the key, did the install the SDK and copy and pasted, then like we're done. Like we are using Gen AI. And so the next kind of steps up, next kind of parts that we have to do start involving the non-Gen AI stuff. Like I had mentioned, I wanted to build a site that would take my resume, let me upload it, and then give me a response about it. That's going to be involving Python and Flask. It's going to be involve me doing some JavaScript on the client side, probably, and so forth, and less time on the Gen AI side, which is good. But let's start going a little bit more complex because I mentioned that I want to again build an app that will look at a resume. So how can in Gen AI can I work with a file? Turns out that's also really, really easy. And we will go into, they keep changing the documentation. Those darn Google people adding new stuff, etc. But under document understanding, it talks about how Gemini and all the Gen AI systems can do this, about how to work with documents. In this case, this entire page is all about PDFs, and you can absolutely do things in other files as well. So, for example, Gen AI can look at audio files and do things like transcription or give you a summary. Gemini can also do things like, here's a transcript of a conversation. What do you hear in the background? Do you hear birds? Do you hear sirens? Do you hear gunshots or a fire, etc.? You can also work with video and do things like summarization, give an outline of what happened. So you can work with different types of files, and PDFs is probably, as you can see here, important enough to get its own documentation. So I like here, yeah, here you can actually pass all kind of files. You can see XML, CSV. Not sure what you would do with XML, but you can. And then this is how you can work with files. So one of the things that Gemini does is it has two ways of working with files. If you have a file that's under 20 megabytes, you can actually include it inline in a prompt. Essentially it just gets glommed together with your text and it goes up. If you're using anything above 20 megabytes, Gemini has a files API, which is essentially cloud storage that's temporary. So you give Google your file, your prompt has access to it, and 24 hours later, Google automatically erases that file. Now, before you ask, yes, there are ways to kind of automate that process. Like, I don't want to wait 24 hours. I want it removed now. You can also work with permanent files as well. You have different options in that regard. I almost always avoid this base 64 inline thing. It is simpler, but I feel like I'm always hitting above that limit every time. I've done some demos with images, asking Gen AI to talk about a particular picture. And if you build any kind of web app that accesses the device camera, which is trivial to do, in today's modern smartphones, those pictures are huge in terms of file size. So you can't use the inline method for that. So I am going to actually just kind of skip the small one. In fact, let me even see just real quick how big my resume is. And let me find it's on my desktop, which you can't see. We're going to copy this to my projects folder. Give me 1 second. I should have did this beforehand. I apologize. I'm going to drop it into, got way too many folders. Code break, Gen AI. All right. Yeah, this is actually only 74 kilobytes, but Get rid of that garbage file. All right. So this is my resume. And it's only like 70 kilobytes or so, so it's not too big. But let's just assume that it's going to be bigger. And I've actually done this quite a bit with Node.js. I haven't done this with Python at all, so this is all new to me. But it makes sense. So they have a path to the PDF, replace with the actual URL if you're large. They're actually using a remote URL. That's pretty cool. And then retrieve and upload the PDF using the file API. Yep, I've done this in Node. And then just bam, they work on it, passing a reference to the sample doc. Looks easy. Let's do this real quick. So, and you know what? Actually, my resume is online as an HTML file. I could possibly use that, but let's see if we can make it work local. So I have a new Python file. I'm just gonna steal everything from their blog, from their documentation. I am going to get my key from the environment and configure Gemini to use it. Home saw like that. All right. And actually, you know what? Before I even point to my resume, let's just make sure this works. This is probably still live. Let's double check to see. Yep, do not discard. All right, they obviously did not. Let's just run this and make sure it is working as advertised. Oops, helps if I import Gemini itself. And you know, Visual Studio Code was trying to warn me about that. Let's try that again. And it's thinking, it's working. Generating a summary. And just so you can tell, yeah, this is definitely taking some time, and that is expected. I have no idea how big that PDF. Oh, it is. We're 618 pages. All right, so I barely expect this to take a little bit of time. While it's doing that, let's quickly go over what it did. So this line here is basically grabbing the PDF data from that URL. And this line here, line 13, that's part of the Python SDK. Again, I've mostly used a Node SDK, but this is my year of Python. And bam, look, it's done. But essentially, this is uploading a copy to Google, to the Gemini system, in a temporary storage that no one can access but me. The result of that is basically a file object where I could pass the file object and the prompt. And when the prompt says this document, because both those things are together, that's how it knows, like this. Oh, you mean the file that you attach with that. And yes, you can absolutely include multiple different files as well. So it worked. I'm not going to read all 618 pages, but that summary looks like it's probably accurate. One thing, you know, I'm kind of blowing off. I'm just going to trust it. And I wouldn't do that in production. And actually, what I would do is, if I was using GenAI to summarize documents, I would store the results. There's no reason to call that multiple times. So if you have a database keeping track of all your documents, for example, there could be a summary column where you could just store the result there. I would make sure that my users have a way to edit the summary. So if they see something wrong from the GenAI system, if they see a detail that's incorrect or misleading, or an important thing missing, a human can go in there and make those edits later. Now, again, I have not used the Python SDK much. I am going to, for the heck of it, just comment out these things and just try to pass. What did I call it? Raymond, not Ratman, Raymond camden.pdf and see if that works. Surely, in theory, it should be faster too because it's a much smaller document. Yep. Oh, if I spell my own name right. All right. If y'all in the room, if y'all saw me misspell my own name and you don't give me crap for it, then I will lose respect for you. Yes. I literally typed the name that I've been writing for uh, many, many years. I am old, in case you can't tell by the gray. I am seriously old. So try that again. Look at that. This is a resume for Raymond Camden. So right away, it identified the type of document. I appreciate that. Highly experienced developer, advocate, and evangelist. His resume highlights strong track record of building relationships with developers, blah, blah, blah. Key accomplishments. Yeah, launching, finding valuable. I'm just kind of mumbling over this. And yeah, that to me looks great. I'm actually pretty happy with that. So clearly you're not spamming resumes enough. Listen, y'all, I have applied at a few companies, even with the holidays and stuff. So I'm spamming out there. So that was 18 lines of code, of which multiple is out there. We're not using HTTPX anymore, not using IO. So we're down to 13 lines. And by the way, in case you're curious, you could actually get structured output from Gen AI, which is really powerful for building systems. So for example, I'm just asking for a summary, but I could set up my prompt to say, I want you to return a JSON packet where I could actually tell the system, say, give me a document type, describe the type of document, and summary here. So if I wanted the output to be machine consumable instead of just like a block of text, I could actually set my system up like this. And in fact, I can even do things, and I've talked about this on my blog. I could give Gen AI a hard-coded list. So you must say resume, blog post, foo, goo, or unknown. And the system will try to slot it into those categories and default to unknown. So just in case you're curious, we don't always have to have just this block of text. Whew. So, without knowing anything really, and that's not fair. Like, again, I've been using this for a year or so, but like we have a resume summary system built in less than 15 lines of code in 40 minutes. And, I spent 20 minutes probably blabbing and stuff. So let's actually try what I said and say, this is a resume. Provide feedback on the resume, including suggestions for improvement. And by the way, that may not have been visible on the stream, but I said suggestions. And, oh, there we go. I'll pause here a second. But I'm using the free ChatGPT Visual Studio Code integration, and that was just in there, and that worked perfectly. So let's try that again, and let's see. And I'm a little scared to run this. I've not been great at my resume. I've always leaned on my friends on that. But let's see how well it does in terms of giving me feedback. Okay. All right. And wow. That's a lot more feedback than I was hoping for. Let's give it a bit more space. Oops. Let's scroll back up. All right. So it's well organized. However, several improvements could enhance the impact. So I avoid jargon. Yeah, I agree with that. Quantifiable results. I added that recently, like last month. Yep, good overview. Quantify more. While many accomplishments are quantified, others could benefit from adding numbers. Yeah, that's that's accurate. I agree with that. The resume is generally strong, but it could be tailored for the specific. Yeah, and I am looking for a developer relations role. I am probably leaning more toward Gen AI because I'm really passionate about it now. To be honest, I love the web platform, love APIs. I'm open to um, pretty much anything in development, but mostly Gen AI. But I could see doing a bit more to tailor it to help me find that. Combine similar roles, consider grouping them under a single heading. I've never seen that in a resume, but I would consider that. Like, oh, they noticed I worked for Adobe twice. Yeah, I mean, so you're kind of seeing my like live reaction to this, and I like it. I like it. I am I yeah. An example of improved phrasing. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So we got that working. That is that's great. Uh, comment by Patrick. Cursor has made my life. This may be dumb. Cursor is not the name of the ChatGPT integration. That's a different product, right? I'll say I'll say that because I have seen other products. So Zencoder, for example, I tried for a little while. I actually applied there and got rejected, but that's all right. Uh, was pretty good as well. No, I'm saying use cursor. So, Satrick, can you share in chat? Probably saying your Pastrick. Could you share the URL to that? Share it with the group, please. I was pretty happy with Zencoder, and then I switched to the ChatGPT stuff. I'll try anything once. Giving him a second. Also gives me a chance to drink some water. It's so good generally. Yep. Cool. Please share with the rest of the group the URL for that, and I'll share it on screen. 2-week pro trial is insane. Gotta have at least a free tier or a free trial. That's yeah. Yep. Spam filter showing it up. That is okay. You know what? I don't want to Google Live. We can talk in Discord. All right. And y'all can Google on the audience. That's fine. But yeah, you never Google for stuff randomly on screen because that's just crazy. So we are at 45 minutes till, and we actually have built, if you think about it, we built a Gen AI part. Like a year ago, this would have been, I would have thought it would have taken me a PhD to do. And to be clear, there's a heck of a lot more kind of, skipping over and stuff like that. But like literally the rest of the application that we are going to build is going to be web crap. It's going to be web stuff. It's going to be a wrapper around this. So what I think I'm going to do is we're going to briefly start the web app. We won't get very far on it. And then in the next session, we'll continue. And then what's cool is I'll be able to freaking just copy and paste, for the most part, this stuff in, right? So let's talk about Flask. And I Like I said, I don't like to Google Live, but this should bring up, oh, it's binging. Keep forgetting to change the search engine for this Chrome engine. So Flask is basically, this is unfair. It's like Node.js, it's like Express and Node.js for Python. It lets you build a incredibly simple, quick web app using Python. If you go to my blog, and you should go to my blog, right? I actually did a quick introduction to it that I will share in chat. I think I'm allowed to paste URLs like that. That was really, really simple. So we're actually going to use Flask to build the front end for this resume review service. So let's go straight into the quick start. Welcome to Flask. User guide. Yeah, and Todd mentioned using a virtual environment. I should have done that. Where is the installation? Virtual environments. Let's go ahead and make a virtual environment because it's that easy. And I should have done it to begin with. All right, and then we will source it, v bin activate. If you're not a Python developer, just don't worry about this part. And then we will install Flask. Oops, did that actually work? I don't think that did anything. Pip install Flask. My phone is still blowing up. Yeah, it's all about people on the roads. Don't go on the road. Like if it's snowing, just don't. We got Flask installed. We're gonna make a new file, app.py, and we are just gonna copy and paste right from their minimal application just to make sure it works. So we're going to import Flask. We're going to create an application. We're going to define a route using a decoration here and return HTML. Let me actually make that finished. And if I remember right, I've only done this once. It is Flask-app hello run. So Flask dash app hello run. Nope, not hello. I think it's just run because if we name it app, it knows the default. There we go. App run. There we go. All right, so let's open this up. And it should say hello world. And that's tiny, so I'll go like that. So you see it's working. So in theory, we can just start building from there. One thing I'll point out, and my blog post talks about this, is that you can use templates. So if you do this, what did I remember? Once you can begin adding in the example above, but use, oh yeah, you make a templates folder. We'll make templates like this. We will make index.html. And just let it default to some stuff. Call this resume reviewer. Like that. And it was literally this. You do have to import render template from Flask, I believe. Nope. From Flask. Yeah, I am just kind of guessing here. What did I do last time? From Flask, import. Yeah, I know how to. I keep getting my Node.js brain confused and my Flask brain. I heart my favorite background was using Flask. Yeah, I have fallen in love with Flask. I only use it a couple of times and I've fallen in love with it. So in theory, if I save this, I should get reload. Oh, forgot to do debug. That's not it. Hold on one second. If you run it in debug mode, it will automatically reload, which is what you want. And that is, where's debug mode? Right there. So add dash dash debug. Well, duh. So dash dash debug. All right. Reload. Resume reviewer. Boom. So I'm going to make the dumbest, quickest thing ever. So we need a file. Name equals file. And the autocomplete there was perfect. Label for file. Select your resume. There's going to be no CSS for this at all yet, but we can add that later if we want. Flask supports actually a static folder that you could drop things into and just serve up static files. But we're going to have that. We're going to need a button, right? ID equals submit, review, and then we'll need a place for results. So this will not be terribly pretty, but there we go. Select your resume, and then you can pick, and then hit review. And at this point, we could start writing JavaScript. And you know what? I will actually, because we're using Flask, let's go ahead and use the static system. If I remember, how do you know what? I'm going to use my complete example because I built a real simple demo. You make a folder called static. Yep. New folder, static, and you can put anything in there. I will go ahead and make a app.css that we'll use later, and an app.js for my JavaScript. And if I remember right, to use it, you literally just copy and paste this. And I will explain this in a second here. Go back to my index.html. All right, it's not a this. It is a script source equals. All right, so couple things going on here. Let me explain this real quick. Yes, close my script tag. So Flask provides a method called URL4, where it will generate a link for you dynamically, which you want to use whenever you have routes and stuff that could change later on. And I apologize. This is not an intro to Flask type thing, so I'm doing a horrible job explaining it. It has a template system built into it. That's why you see these : things that allows you to build like dynamic HTML pages with Python. So the combination of that, combination of Flask saying, hey, I built an abstract way to point to a URL for you. That's what you see going on there. And I have a template system. And so in theory, this should just, when I reload, load that JavaScript file for me. And for the heck of it, we will make sure that works. Alert 1, been using that for years. And it worked. Okay. So I'm going to pause here because we have this a couple minutes left and kind of quickly talk about it. And let's switch to the full on, you're looking at my face type view. And talk about what we did so far. So I told you how to get a key for Gemini. There's multiple generative AI systems out there. I recommend Gemini just because it's been easy for me to learn. If you look at my blog posts, that's what I've been focused on. You can literally leave this stream, get the key, and begin learning right now, which could be great for your career. We used the Python SDK. We did a quick, simple text prompt. We followed that up with a prompt using a file. One of the features Gemini has is a temporary file storage system, which is a handy way of saying, I want to give you this file and I want to ask you a question about it. And you saw like that that worked. Like, and all that was less than 20 lines of code each. So the real work began in the last 15 or so minutes of us actually building the application. I decided to use Flask, Python web application framework, to make it a little bit simpler and to let me keep my code in Python. We started that basic web app. Currently, it's just loading a homepage. And what we're going to do in the next session, which is, remember I told y'all I put dates on all this, of Tuesday, February 4th. What we'll do in the next session is essentially let the user pick the PDF, hit submit, and I'm going to use JavaScript. I'm going to use it to send it to my Flask server. Flask is going to process that file, and then I can literally like copy and paste that Python code I used to work with the new resume, and then get the results. And then I'll send it back out as a JSON packet, and we'll have my JavaScript code rendered in the result. So that's the plan. And actually, so those of you watching, if you would like to email me a copy of your resume in PDF form, I'll happily run it live on screen. You know, if you're happy with seeing that there. But yeah, let me know. Again, I appreciate everything. Thanks for the great chatter, y'all. Thanks for commenting and all that. I appreciate it. And I can't wait to, I wish I was doing the stream tomorrow. Can't wait to do this again. Have a great rest of your day, and stay safe out there. Goodbye.